The complete works of Swami Vivekananda, The Common Basis of Hinduism, Part 1. On his arrival at Lahore, the Swamiji was accorded a grand reception by the leaders, both of the Arya Samaj and of Sanatan Dharm Sabha. During his brief stay at Lahore, Swamiji delivered 3 lectures. The first of these 3 lectures was on the common basis of Hinduism, the second on Bhakti, and the third one was the famous lecture on the Vedanta. On the first occasion, he spoke as follows: The Common Basis of Hinduism, Part 1. This is the land which is held to be the holiest even in the holy Aryavrat. This is the Brahmavat of which our great Manu speaks. This is the land from whence arose that mighty inspiration after the spirit I, which in the times to come, as history shows, is to deluge the world. This is a land where, like its mighty rivers, spiritual aspirations have arisen and joined their strength till they travelled over the length and the breadth of the world and declared themselves with a voice of thunder. This is the land which had first to bear the brunt of all inroads and invasions into India. This heroic land was first to bear its bosom to every onslaught of the outer barbarians into Aryavrat. This is the land which, after all its sufferings, has yet not entirely lost its glory and its strength. Here it was that in later times the gentle Nanak preached his marvelous love for the world. Here it was that his broad heart was opened and his arms outstretched to embrace the whole world, not only of Hindus but of Mohammedans too. Here it was that one of the last and the most glorious heroes of our race, Guru Gobind Singh, after shedding his blood and that of his dearest and nearest for the cause of religion, even when deserted by those for whom this blood had been shed, retired into the south to die like a wounded lion, struck to the heart, without a word against his country, without a single word of murmur. Here in this ancient land of ours, children of the land of 5 rivers, I stand before you, not as a teacher, for I know very little to teach, but as one who has come from the east to exchange words of greetings with the brothers of the west and to compare notes. Here I am not to find out the differences among us, the differences that exist among us, but to find where we agree. Here I am trying to understand on what ground we may always remain brothers, upon what foundations the voice that has spoken from eternity may become stronger and stronger as it grows. Here I am to try to propose to you something of constructive work and not destructive. For criticism, the days are the past, and we are waiting for constructive work. The world needs at times criticisms, even fierce ones, but that is only for a time, and the work for eternity is progress and construction, and not criticism and destruction. For the last hundreds of years or so, there has been a flood of criticism all over this land of ours, where the full play of Western science has been let loose upon all the dark spots, and as a result of the corners and the holes have become much more prominent than anything else. Naturally enough, there arose mighty intellects all over the land, great and glorious, with the love and of truth and justice in our hearts, with the love of their country, and above all an intense love for their religion and their God. And because these mighty souls feel so deeply, because they loved so deeply, they criticized everything they thought was wrong. Glory unto these mighty spirits of the past. They have done so much good, but the voice of the present day is coming to tell us, enough. There has been enough of criticism. There has been enough of fault finding. The time has come for the rebuilding, the reconstruction. The time has come for us to gather all our scattered forces, to concentrate them into one focus, and through that to lead the world, and through that to lead the nation on to its onward march, which for centuries almost had stopped. The house has been cleansed. Let it be inhabited anew. The road has been cleared. March, children of the Aryans. Gentlemen, this is the motive that brings me before you. And as I start, I may declare to you that I belong to no party and no sect. They are all great and glorious to me. I love them all. And all my life, I have been attempted to find what is good and true in them. Therefore, it is my proposal tonight to bring before you points where we are agreed with, to find out, if we can, a ground of agreement. And if through the grace of the Lord such a state of things be possible, let us take it up and from theory carry it out into practice. We are Hindus. I do not use the word Hindu in any bad sense at all, nor do I agree with those that think there is any bad meaning in it. In old times, it simply meant people who lived on the other side of the Indus. Today, good many among those who hate us may have put a bad interpretation on it, but names are nothing. Upon us depends whether the name Hindu will stand for everything that is glorious, everything that is spiritual, or whether it will remain a name of opprobrium, one designating the downtrodden, the worthless, the heathen. If at present the word Hindu means anything bad, never mind. By our action, let us be ready to show that this is the highest word that any language can invent. It has been one of the principles of my life not to be ashamed of my own ancestors. I am one of the proudest men ever born, but let me tell you frankly, it is not for myself, but on account of my ancestry. The more I have studied the past, the more I have looked back more and more, has this pride come to me, and it has given me the strength and courage of conviction and raised me up from the dust of the earth and set me working out that great plan laid out by those great ancestors of ours. Children of those ancient Aryans, through the grace of the Lord, may you have the same pride. May that faith in your ancestors come into your blood. May it become a part and parcel of your lives. May it work towards the salvation of the world.